Hello everyone. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now, let's begin. When I was 10, my parents bought a house that everyone in our town called the Quiet One on Gray Hill Lane. It was a 2-story structure surrounded by dry grass and a tall wooden fence that creaked every time the wind passed. But there was something about that house that made my skin crawl. The basement door was always locked, and my mother, who was usually calm, turned pale whenever I asked about it. At night, I'd hear faint noises coming from below. Scratching, tapping, sometimes a low hum that sounded like someone whispering. When I told my dad, he laughed and said, "Old houses make noises, kiddo. Go back to sleep." But one night, I caught my mom standing by the basement door at 3 a.m., her ear pressed against the wood. When she noticed me, she froze. Her eyes, wide, glassy, looked like she hadn't slept in days. She whispered, "Go back to bed, Thomas. Never come down here." And then I heard something knock back, 3 slow knocks from behind that door. Days passed, but that basement door haunted me. One afternoon, when my parents were out, I searched their bedroom. I found a small brass key tied with red string hidden inside my mother's jewelry box. My heart raced. I knew it was the key. I tiptoed to the basement door and slid the key into the lock. The metal groaned. The moment it clicked open, a wave of cold air hit me, sharp and metallic, smelling like old blood and wet dirt. The stairs creaked as I went down. The deeper I went, the darker it became, until my flashlight flickered and revealed the walls covered in drawings. Children's drawings, stick figures, families, smiling faces. But every face was crossed out with black crayon. Then I saw it, a rocking chair in the corner. It was moving, slowly, back and forth, back and forth. And on it was a figure. It looked like my mother, but her skin was pale gray, her eyes hollow, and her mouth stretched in a smile too wide to be human. I screamed and dropped my flashlight, the sound echoing off the cold walls. When I looked up again, the chair was empty. But then I heard her voice. "Tommy." It wasn't my mother's voice. It was slower, raspier, echoing as if from inside the walls. I stumbled backward, slamming into a metal cabinet. The door fell open, spilling out children's shoes. Dozens of them, different sizes. Some still had names written inside. The whisper came again, closer now. "Don't tell her you've been down here." I bolted upstairs, slammed the basement door shut, and locked it. When my mom came home, she found me trembling in the corner. She asked what happened. I told her everything. She didn't react. She just smiled, the same smile that the thing in the basement had. That night, she made me my favorite meal, but I couldn't eat it. I noticed small red stains on her sleeves. The next morning, my father wasn't at breakfast. Mom said he had left early for work. But hours passed, and he didn't return. I waited, watching the clock, until I saw my mom carrying something down to the basement, a small black bag. That night, when she went to sleep, I snuck into her room again. On her dresser, I found an old tape recorder. I pressed play. Static filled the air, followed by my dad's voice. He was crying. "Please, Karen, stop this. The kids didn't deserve..." "Static, you said it was just one more." "Static, God help us." Then I heard a woman's laughter, my mom's, followed by a loud metallic clang. The tape ended. At midnight, I woke to a sound I dreaded. The basement door slowly creaking open. Footsteps followed, soft, deliberate. I pretended to sleep, but the steps came closer to my bed. Then a whisper. "You shouldn't have listened, Tommy." I opened my eyes just enough to see her silhouette. My mother, standing still, head tilted unnaturally. She was holding the brass key. She smiled in the dark, and without a word, left the room. But when I looked toward the hall, the basement door stood open, and faint light flickered from below, like candles glowing. I couldn't sleep. I needed to know what she was hiding, even if it killed me. The night dragged on like a fever dream. I waited until I heard my mother snoring faintly, then slipped out of bed. The floorboards groaned under my bare feet. When I reached the basement, the air was heavy, thick with the smell of burnt wax and rust. The flickering candlelight below painted shadows that twisted across the walls like living things. I crept down slowly, holding my breath. There were jars, dozens of glass jars, stacked on a wooden shelf. Inside them floated small things I couldn't immediately recognize. When I leaned closer, I realized they were teeth, baby teeth. Some had names written on masking tape beneath them. In the center of the basement was a circle drawn in chalk, stained dark red at its edges. Inside the circle lay my father's watch, and beside it, a small music box I'd never seen before, carved with the words, "Forever Family." I reached out to pick it up, but before I could, the rocking chair creaked again. It moved slowly on its own, back and forth, back and forth. Then I heard my father's voice, faint, whispering from the darkness, "Run, son. She's coming." The candlelight flickered violently, and then I saw her. Standing at the top of the stairs, my mother, holding a knife. I froze. The knife in her hand gleamed under the candlelight. She didn't move. She just watched me, silent, expressionless. Then she said, "You weren't supposed to see that, Tommy." Her voice was calm, almost motherly, which made it even worse. She stepped closer, and I saw her eyes, lifeless, almost gray, like something else was living behind them. "Where's Dad?" I whispered. Her lips trembled into a smile. "He's safe, with the others." Before I could react, she lunged. I dodged, grabbing a wooden chair and smashing it against her arm. The knife clattered to the floor. She screamed, not in pain, but in rage. A deep, guttural sound that didn't sound human. I bolted up the stairs, but she caught my ankle, dragging me back. Her nails dug into my skin like claws. Then the floor beneath her cracked, the boards splitting open to reveal a dark void beneath. A smell like rotting meat filled the air. Hands, gray, bony hands, reached up from that hole and grabbed her. She screamed again, louder this time, "Don't let them take me. Tommy, help me." But I didn't. I ran. The last thing I saw before I slammed the door shut was her being pulled into that darkness, her face twisting into something monstrous as the candles blew out. I locked the door and backed away, shaking uncontrollably. My chest heaved, heart pounding so hard I could hear it. But then, silence. No footsteps, no screams, only the ticking of the hallway clock. For a few moments, I believed it was over, that she was gone. Until I heard it, knock, 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 from under the floor. It didn't come from the door this time. It came from below me. I pressed my ear to the wooden floorboards and froze. A voice whispered faintly, like a song played backward. It was my mother's voice, but wrong, twisted. "Forever family. Forever family." Then something moved under the boards, slowly dragging itself toward the stairs. The entire house began to creak, as if something massive was shifting beneath it. I ran to the window, ready to jump if I had to. But when I looked outside, every house on Gray Hill Lane was dark. No lights, No sound, no people. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't hearing just her. I was hearing them. All the voices of the children whose shoes I had found in the basement. And they were chanting the same words in unison. Forever family. Forever family. I couldn't take it anymore. If I didn't end it, it would never stop. I grabbed a hammer from the kitchen drawer and went back to the basement door. It felt colder than before. Frost gathered on the knob. I took a deep breath and opened it. The steps were covered in black mold now, and the air was thick like smoke. The rocking chair was gone. The circle was smeared. In its place stood my mother, or what was left of her. Her skin hung loose, her hair floating as if underwater. She smiled, blood dripping from her teeth. "Welcome home, Tommy," she whispered. Behind her, dozens of faces emerged from the darkness, children, pale and hollow-eyed, their mouths sewn shut with thread. I screamed and swung the hammer. She caught it mid-swing with inhuman strength, her cold hand gripping mine until I dropped it. Then she leaned in close and whispered, "Now you'll never leave me again." Before I could move, she shoved me backward into the circle. The floor gave way, and I fell. Down, into the darkness. When I woke up, I wasn't in my house anymore. I was in a dark room, cold concrete against my back. In front of me was the same music box. It began to play on its own. The lid opened, and a small figure spun inside. It was me. Then I saw the walls. They were covered in new drawings, all done in crayon. This time, they weren't crossed out. They were smiling, all of them. And standing behind me was my mother, humming the tune from the music box. "See, Tommy," she said softly. "Now we'll always be together." I screamed, but my voice didn't come out. When I touched my mouth, I realized why. It was sewn shut. The music box stopped, and in the silence that followed, I heard new footsteps upstairs. Children's voices giggling. Someone new had just moved into the house on Gray Hill Lane. The basement mother had found her next family. My father was always obsessed with perfection. Not with himself, but with me. Ever since my mother died when I was 6, he made sure everything in our house stayed just right. My hair had to be combed a certain way. My clothes had to match perfectly. If a single button was wrong, he'd frown and whisper, "We don't disappoint, do we, sweetheart?" Every evening, he'd take a picture of me in front of the living room fireplace. Same pose, same smile. He'd hang the photo on the wall with the others. There were hundreds of them. But one night, I woke up to the sound of snapping, the sound of a camera shutter coming from downstairs. When I peeked into the living room, my father was there, whispering to the pictures on the wall. He wasn't alone. He was talking to someone, or something. Standing in the corner, I couldn't see it clearly, just a shadow with long hair and eyes that glowed faintly red when the flash went off. He turned to me and smiled. "Go back to bed, baby girl. Daddy's making new memories." But when I looked at the newest picture on the wall the next morning, the shadow was there too, standing right behind me. After that night, my father became stricter. He locked all the windows, covered every mirror with white cloth. He said it was to keep the light from getting in. He stopped letting me go to school. My friends thought we had moved away. Every day, he made me wear the same white dress and stand in front of the fireplace while he took photos. The smell of burnt wood mixed with the scent of the developing chemicals he used, a sickly sweet odor that stuck to my skin. One evening, while cleaning, I found a stack of undeveloped photos hidden in his study. When I held one to the light, my heart nearly stopped. The photo wasn't of me smiling. It was me crying. Behind me, the shadow's hand rested on my shoulder. I dropped the photo and ran to his room. Inside his closet, I found something worse. A mannequin, dressed in the same white dress I wore, with a wig made from real human hair. Pinned to its chest was a note written in my father's handwriting. Practice makes perfect. That night, I didn't sleep, because every creak in the hallway sounded like footsteps, and every whisper from the dark sounded like him. It was around midnight when I heard a strange sound coming from behind the basement door, a low hum like someone singing a lullaby underwater. I crept closer, pressing my ear against the cold wood. "Smile for Daddy," the voice said softly. Then, click, the sound of a camera. I froze. The door rattled slightly, as if someone inside had just brushed against it. "Daddy," I whispered. No answer. I opened the door just a crack. The light from above spilled down, revealing the concrete steps leading into pitch darkness. A faint red glow pulsed below, in rhythm with the sound of a heartbeat. Then, a hand appeared on the railing, pale, thin, shaking. It wasn't my father's. I slammed the door shut and backed away, my chest heaving. A few seconds later, the doorknob started to turn slowly on its own. That's when my father appeared from the hallway, expression cold. "You weren't supposed to open that," he said flatly. "Now she's awake." Then, in a calm voice that chilled me to the bone, he whispered, "Go upstairs, my perfect girl. Daddy will take care of her." My father didn't come upstairs that night. I sat on my bed, clutching the blanket, listening to the faint thuds echoing from below, dull, heavy, rhythmic. Then, silence. When I finally gathered the courage to check, the basement door was wide open. The air smelled of sulfur and burnt film. I tiptoed down. The walls were covered in photographs, thousands of them, hanging from strings like curtains. All of me, smiling, laughing, crying, sleeping. Some photos were cut and rearranged, different mouths, different eyes, stitched together like collages. One picture showed me standing next to a woman who looked exactly like my dead mother, but she was missing her face. In the center of the room was my father's old camera, its flash still smoking. Next to it lay my father, unconscious, his face covered in scratches, and the word "liar" carved into his chest. When I tried to wake him, he opened his eyes. But they weren't his anymore. They were glowing faint red. He whispered, "You ruined everything. She wanted to make you perfect." Then he passed out. I dragged my father upstairs, but he wouldn't wake. His breathing was shallow, his pulse erratic. I tried calling for help, but the phone line was dead. That's when I saw something that made my stomach twist. One of the white cloths had fallen off the mirror in the hallway. In the reflection, I saw myself standing there. But I wasn't alone. Behind me, a woman stood. Tall, gaunt, with blackened eyes and lips stitched shut. Her face was identical to mine. She moved when I didn't. When I blinked, she didn't. I stumbled backward, knocking over a vase. My father's voice, faint and broken, echoed from the floor. "She's not you. She's what I tried to make you." The woman in the reflection smiled. Wide, unnatural. Then she lifted her finger and traced something onto the mirror surface. It was a single word written backward. "Trade." I screamed and covered the mirror with a sheet again. But her shadow stayed visible beneath it. My father groaned from the floor, whispering. "She came from the photographs. I made her too real." He handed me the camera. "Destroy it." But before I could, a flash went off on its own. The air grew thick, and the smell of burning chemicals filled the room. When I opened my eyes, the lights were gone, except for one faint red glow reflecting from the mirror. The woman was no longer behind me. She was beside me. Her fingers brushed my shoulder. Her touch was freezing, like death itself. "Perfect," she hissed, her mouth tearing slightly with the word. I raised the camera, shaking. "Stay away from me." She tilted her head. "Daddy made me first." Then she grabbed the lens and whispered, "Now it's your turn." A blinding flash filled the room. When the light faded, the mirror was empty. But the girl inside it was smiling, and she was still holding the camera. When I came to, I was lying on the floor in the basement again. The air was colder now, so cold that each breath came out like smoke. The hanging photographs swayed gently, whispering as they brushed against each other. I saw my father sitting in the corner, rocking back and forth, clutching the old camera to his chest. He was mumbling, "She's perfect now. She's perfect now," over and over again. I called out to him, but he didn't react. I crawled closer and saw his face under the dim red bulb. His eyes had been gouged out. 2 black Polaroid photos were jammed into the sockets. One of me smiling, one of the reflection girl. My stomach turned. I stumbled backward, tripping over a small door I hadn't noticed before, hidden under the rug. It was a crawl space. Inside were dozens of film canisters and more mannequins dressed like me, each one in a slightly different pose. Some of them had real hair, others had cracked porcelain faces. And on the wall behind them, painted in my father's handwriting, were the words, "We don't need mirrors anymore." Then the camera clicked again, all by itself. I turned, but there was no one behind me. Only the faint sound of laughter, a little girl's laughter, echoing from inside the crawl space. The laughter didn't stop. It grew louder, overlapping, echoing from every wall. Then I realized it wasn't coming from the crawl space anymore. It was coming from the photographs themselves. The faces in the photos began to move. Eyes blinked, mouths twitched, smiles widened. Some faces even turned slightly, following me as I stepped backward. One photo fell from the string and landed face up at my feet. It was me, but not the me I remembered. This version of me had black eyes, stitched lips, and a smile that stretched too far. When I picked it up, the ink started to bleed. The smile moved, and I heard my own voice, whispering from the picture. "Trade places, Daddy's waiting." The photographs began to peel off the walls, floating in the air, swirling around me like a storm. The red light flickered wildly, and in every flash, I saw the reflection girl getting closer. Her movements jerky, her head snapping side to side. She pointed at the camera lying near my father's body, the same camera that had taken every picture. And in that moment, I knew. If I didn't destroy it, she'd take my place. I grabbed it. My hands trembled as I raised it over my head, ready to smash it. But the voice from the photos hissed, "If you break it, you'll break you." I hesitated. My father's voice whispered faintly in my head, "Perfection never dies." I screamed and slammed the camera to the floor. The lens cracked, and everything went black. For a moment, there was silence. Then, a faint click. A single photograph slid out of the broken camera and landed near my feet. It was blank. But slowly, an image began to develop. Not of me, not of my father. It was of the reflection girl, standing in my bedroom upstairs. She was smiling at the camera. Behind her, my bed was empty. I ran, up the stairs, into my room. And there she was, standing beside my bed, head tilted, holding the same camera I had just destroyed. "Daddy loves me more," she whispered. She raised the camera, the flash blindingly bright. When my vision cleared, I was standing in front of the fireplace again, my father beside me, smiling proudly. "See, sweetheart," he said gently, "now you're perfect." I tried to speak, but my lips wouldn't move. I looked down at my hands. They were porcelain. Weeks later, the police found the house abandoned. They discovered hundreds of photographs, mannequins, and strange symbols burned into the walls. But no trace of my father or me. The neighbors said they sometimes saw lights flickering in the windows at night, flashes like an old camera. And sometimes, if you looked closely enough, you could see silhouettes in the window, a man, a woman, and a little girl, perfectly still. But here's the part no one ever talks about. When the police developed the last roll of film they found in the basement, they saw a family portrait. My father, my mother, and me, all smiling. But behind us stood a fourth figure, another version of me, holding a camera, her stitched smile wide and lifeless. That photo now sits in a police evidence locker, locked away from public eyes. But sometimes, when the light hits it just right, you can see movement inside. The little girl raises the camera, and somewhere, far away, another flash goes off in the dark. My father wasn't like other men. He didn't collect coins, stamps, or memories. He collected sounds. When I was little, he'd carry around an old reel-to-reel recorder everywhere, to the market, the woods, even funerals. He'd hold the mic close to his mouth and whisper, "Every sound tells a story, son." Some sounds never die at night. When I'd wake to drink water, I'd see him in the basement, surrounded by hundreds of tape reels stacked to the ceiling. Each was carefully labeled: whisper number 32, cry number 14, laughter number 5. And in the center of it all, one shelf stood empty, labeled in his shaky handwriting, "The Perfect Scream." When I asked him what that meant, he smiled, eyes glassy under the dim light. "You'll hear it one day," he said softly. "It's the sound that keeps the world awake." Years passed. His obsession grew. Neighbors complained about strange noises at night, muffled cries, animal howls, sometimes even human voices echoing from our basement. He'd always laugh and say, "Just experiments." But the day I turned 16, I realized something. Every sound in his collection came from a real living thing. And some of them I recognized. I wasn't supposed to go down there. Ever. But one night, curiosity won. The door was locked, but the key hung behind the family photo frame in the hallway. When I stepped inside, the first thing that hit me was the smell. A mix of rust, dust, and something rotten. The walls were covered in soundproofing foam, but there were stains on it. Dark, splattered stains. Dozens of microphones hung from the ceiling like vines, each one connected to an old recorder, spinning endlessly, capturing nothing but static. Then I saw the chair. A steel chair with straps, positioned in the middle of the room. Beside it, a microphone pointed directly at the seat, as if waiting for someone to scream. On the wall above it, my father had written, "Silence is death. Sound is life." I froze when I noticed something else. The reels were still turning, but no one was speaking. Yet through the headphones, I heard faint breathing. Then, whispering, my name, over and over again, in my own voice. I confronted my father that morning. He was in the kitchen, humming while sharpening a knife. When I asked about the tapes, he just smiled and said, "You shouldn't listen to what's not meant for you." but I couldn't let it go. That night, I listened again. Each reel was labeled differently. Mother's Cry, 1989. Boy in Forest, 1992. Neighbor's Dog, 1994. And then I found one labeled with my own name. I hesitated before pressing play. At first it was just silence. Then, a faint sobbing sound. It was me. Crying, screaming, begging. My stomach twisted. I didn't remember ever being tied down or hurt. But the sound, it was unmistakably mine. When I turned around, I saw him standing in the doorway, the knife still in his hand. "You shouldn't have opened that one," he whispered. "You ruined the surprise." He stepped forward. His face was pale, eyes glowing with a feverish kind of joy. "I've been saving that scream for years. But I think it's time to make it perfect." He tied me to the chair, the same one I'd seen earlier. The leather straps dug into my wrists and ankles, and the cold microphone hovered inches from my mouth. "Every great artist needs his masterpiece," he said. "And your voice, your scream, is mine." He adjusted the recorder, eyes wide and trembling. As the reels began to spin, the room filled with static and an awful hum that vibrated through my bones. He pressed a switch, and an ear-piercing tone blared through the speakers. I screamed, out of pain, fear, and disbelief. He grinned. "Beautiful. Almost perfect." Then he turned up the volume, feeding my own scream back into the room. It echoed, distorted, overlapping until it didn't sound human anymore. My eardrums throbbed. My throat tore. He whispered, "We're getting closer." Then something strange happened. The walls began to move. The soundproof foam pulsed, breathing like flesh. The microphone swayed as if caught in wind. The sound had become alive. The sound filled every corner of the room. It was no longer just a recording. It was alive. The vibration crawled through my veins, making my teeth chatter and eyes water. My father was laughing uncontrollably, his hands raised like a conductor leading an invisible orchestra. "Can you hear it, son?" The sound of the world tearing itself open. I screamed again, but my voice didn't echo. It layered, splitting into hundreds of overlapping screams. Each one belonged to me, but came from a different time, a different reality. I heard my own voice as a child, as a teenager, as something older. They screamed together in harmony. Then the lights flickered. The speakers blew out, and something crawled out from the speakers. It wasn't human, just a shape made of sound, vibrating, flickering in and out like static. Its outline pulsed with every decibel, screaming in the same tone as my father's laugh. He fell to his knees, crying tears of joy. "It's beautiful. It's the perfect scream." And then it turned its attention to him. Before I could blink, it entered him, through his open mouth, down his throat. He convulsed violently, his body twisting in unnatural ways, his eyes rolling back. When the sound stopped, he looked at me and whispered, "I can finally hear everything." Then, silence. Absolute silence. Not a hum, not a buzz. Just an impossible quiet that pressed against my eardrums like weight. My father stood perfectly still, the smile gone from his face. Blood trickled from his ears, his eyes blank and unfocused. I tugged at the straps, my wrists raw, until one broke loose. The recorder's reels had stopped spinning. The label on it now read, in his handwriting, "Final, complete." When I touched the machine, it was warm, almost burning. Inside, I could hear faint murmurs, like whispers trapped in the metal. I backed away slowly. Then, his body moved. Not like a man, but like a puppet. His neck cracked as he turned toward me. His mouth opened, and out came a soft, distorted version of my own scream. He stepped forward, his shadow stretching unnaturally across the floor. Every step made a low hum, like a bass note echoing through the house. "Do you hear me now, son?" he said. But it wasn't his voice. It was a blend of mine and his, fused and wrong. I ran. I sprinted upstairs, gasping, blood roaring in my ears. But every sound I made, my footsteps, my breathing, felt amplified, echoing unnaturally loud. The house seemed to breathe with me, the walls pulsing like they were alive. Behind me, I could still hear him, not running, just walking. Each step followed by a low rumble that shook the glass windows. I grabbed my phone and tried calling the police, but all I heard on the line was static. Then my father's voice came through from the other end. "Don't run from your own sound, son." The lights flickered again. The house groaned, every wall humming at a different frequency. I ran to the front door. It wouldn't budge. The locks had sealed themselves. Then I saw something move inside the hallway mirror. My reflection screamed, though I hadn't made a sound. And in that reflection, behind me, my father stood smiling. I turned, but he wasn't there. Only the faint echo of my scream filled the house, bouncing from room to room. I thought I'd escaped the nightmare when I finally blacked out near the door. But when I opened my eyes, I wasn't in the hallway anymore. I was back in the basement. The lights were brighter now, white and cold. Every tape reel had rewound itself, spinning backward. From them came faint whispers, laughter, sobbing, even my own voice repeating, "You can't leave until the sound is complete." My father was gone. Only the recorder sat where he'd been, a single red light blinking. I approached slowly, trembling, and pressed play. Static. Then his voice. "Son, if you're hearing this, then I've become the sound. But don't worry, soon you'll join me." The machine began to spin faster. The whispers grew louder until they blended into one deafening scream. I clutched my ears, fell to the ground, screaming back. But it swallowed my voice whole. The walls cracked, the lights burst, and then everything went black. When I woke up, I wasn't in the basement anymore. I was in a hospital bed. A nurse said they found me unconscious in my house after the neighbors complained about horrible noises. They told me my father had vanished. No trace, no body. Just hundreds of empty reels scattered across the floor, and one still playing, even though the power was off. I told them not to touch it, but they did. A few hours later, I heard screams echoing down the hospital hall. The nurse who played the tape collapsed. She whispered one word before her pulse stopped. "Perfect." They said it was a coincidence, but when I listened again, her scream had joined the recording. Now I hear them, all of them, whispering at night through my headphones. My father was right. Some sounds never die. It's been 3 years. I've moved far away, changed my name, tried to forget. But sometimes, when the world gets quiet, I hear it again. The hum. The low, familiar vibration. A few months ago, I started a small podcast. It's called The Sound Collector. I tell horror stories, record ambient noises, and share them with my audience. But lately, my recordings have been strange. When I edit them, I hear whispers underneath. Familiar voices. Screams that blend perfectly together. Last week, I received an anonymous email with an audio file attached. The subject line read, "Your father's masterpiece." When I played it, I heard my own voice say, "Now it's your turn." The recording grew louder, drowning everything. Before I could stop it, the waveform on the screen began to move on its own. The speakers trembled, and through the static, I heard it. The perfect scream. Now, I'm recording again. But this time, I'm not alone. You're listening too. And soon, you'll hear it as well. Growing up, my mom always told me there was one room in the house I could never go inside. It was at the end of the hallway, a door painted the same dull beige as the walls, with a rusted lock that never seemed to open. She'd smile sweetly whenever I asked about it. "Oh, honey, that's just where Mommy keeps her old things. Nothing for little eyes to see, but I'd hear sounds coming from there at night. Soft thuds, sometimes crying. Once, when I pressed my ear to the wood, I swore I heard breathing. When I told her, she got angry, her face twisting in a way I'd never seen before. 'Don't ever go near that door again,' she hissed. Her nails dug into my arm so hard they left marks. After that, she started sleeping during the day and staying up all night. I'd wake at 3 a.m. and see light glowing from under that locked door. One night, curiosity won. I found her keys on the counter while she showered. My hands trembled as I picked them up. Something inside me whispered, "Open it." The key clicked louder than I expected. I froze, listening. The shower's still running. I pushed the door open just an inch. Warm air escaped, carrying a smell like copper and spoiled meat. The light flickered, swinging from a bare bulb. Inside were shelves, dozens of them, lined with jars, each one filled with something. Some looked like dolls, others like tiny human parts, fingers, maybe eyes, all floating in thick amber liquid. In the corner stood an old rocking chair, creaking back and forth though no one sat there. A low hum came from somewhere behind it. I stepped inside, holding my breath. On a small table, I saw a photograph, my mom, holding a baby, but not me. I turned it over. On the back in her handwriting, "Eli, my firstborn." My heart stopped. I was an only child, wasn't I? Then, from behind the rocking chair, I heard it. A whisper, faint, trembling, childlike. Mommy said, not to wake me. The whisper sent ice down my spine. I took one shaky step closer to the chair. The smell grew stronger, metallic, almost sweet. The whisper came again. "Who are you?" I froze. The chair rocked once more. From the shadows behind it, something moved. Small, hunched, pale. Two tiny hands gripped the chair's edge, and then a head lifted. It was a child, but not right. His skin looked paper thin, stretched too tight. His eyes milky, his hair patchy and gray, though he couldn't be older than 7. He smiled when he saw me. "You look like me." My heart hammered in my chest. "Who are you?" I whispered back. He blinked slowly. "I'm Eli. Mommy said you'd come one day." My breath caught. I'm your brother," I said. He tilted his head, grin widening. "No. Mommy said I'm the real one. You're just the copy she made." Footsteps echoed in the hallway. The shower had stopped. The door creaked louder as I backed away. My mother's footsteps grew closer. "Mom?" I called weakly, my voice trembling. But she didn't answer, just humming softly like a lullaby, the same one she'd sung to me as a kid. I turned toward Eli. He was staring at the door, breathing fast. "She doesn't like when I talk," he whispered. "She gets angry." The lock turned. The door swung open. She stood there, soaking wet, hair hanging over her face, eyes wide and furious. "What did I tell you about this room?" she screamed. Her voice cracked the air like thunder. I just wanted to know," I cried. Her gaze shifted past me, to the boy. Her expression changed instantly, from rage to tenderness. "Oh, baby, Mommy's here." She knelt and reached for Eli, tears in her eyes, but he shrank back. No. You said you'd let me go. The look on her face twisted into something monstrous. No, sweetheart, she whispered. Mommy never lets go. Before I could move, Mom grabbed Eli's arm. He screamed, his skin blistering where she touched him. Smoke rose from his flesh. Stop it, I yelled, shoving her away. She stumbled, then glared at me with pure hatred. You don't understand. He's not supposed to be here anymore. Eli whimpered, curling up. You promised. She turned back toward him, shaking. I did promise, but you kept waking up. You kept ruining things. That's when I saw them. The jars on the highest shelf. Each one had a small tag with a name written in faded ink. Eli number 1, Eli number 2, Eli number 3. The last one was half full, the liquid darker, thicker, Eli number 6. And on the floor near her feet, a half-formed shape, another small, lifeless body. A 7th Eli. I realized what she meant. She wasn't my mother. She'd been trying to make one that never died. She lunged at me, knocking over a jar. It shattered, spilling thick yellow fluid across the floor. The smell of rot filled the air. You were the best version, she hissed. You lived. You smiled. You made me believe. Eli screamed again, covering his ears. Make it stop. The walls began to tremble, as if responding to his voice. The light bulb burst, plunging the room into flashes of red emergency glow from the hallway. She dragged me toward the table, her nails cutting my skin. On the counter lay surgical tools, scalpels, syringes, and another jar labeled with my name. No, I yelled, kicking free. Eli crawled toward me, his weak voice trembling. She keeps us here, he whispered, but I can help you leave. Mom turned, eyes wild. You can't both exist, she screamed. Then she raised the scalpel. Time slowed. I grabbed the nearest jar and smashed it against her arm. She screamed, falling backward, the scalpel clattering away. The red light pulsed faster. Eli's body began to glow faintly, a ghostly white light from under his skin. I can stop it, he whispered, but it'll hurt. I didn't understand what he meant until he pressed his small hand against my chest. The warmth spread through me, burning, consuming. The room filled with a blinding white light. Mom's voice faded into the distance. No, Eli, don't you dare. Then silence. When the light dimmed, she was gone. Only her clothes remained, and a single jar rolling across the floor. Inside it, something new was forming. Something alive. Eli smiled weakly. Now she can't hurt us. Then he looked down at his hands. They were turning translucent. Eli looked up at me, his body fading like smoke. I wasn't supposed to stay this long, he said softly. His voice sounded far away now, carried by the flicker of dying light. I tried to be her son, he whispered, but I was only her mistake. I reached out, but my hand passed through him. He smiled one last time. Now you can be free? Then he was gone, nothing left but the faint hum of the light and the whisper of his voice echoing off the walls. I stumbled out of the room, dizzy, numb. Behind me, the jars began to shake on their shelves. One by one, they cracked, releasing faint childlike cries before going silent. When I looked back down the hall, the door had vanished. The wall was smooth, as if it had never existed. Weeks passed before the police believed my story. When they searched the house, they found nothing. No secret room, no jars, no trace of my mother. They said grief makes people imagine things. But I know what I saw. Some nights, I still hear the rocking chair creaking faintly, even though I live miles away. And sometimes, when I dream, I see Eli's pale face smiling through the dark. The therapists say it's trauma, but last night I woke up to find something under my bed. A glass jar filled with yellow fluid. Floating inside it was a single small hand and a label written in my mother's handwriting. Eli number 8. It's been months. I moved across the country, changed my number, changed everything. But tonight, I heard her voice again, soft, distant, coming from my closet. That same lullaby, slow, broken, off-key. I froze. The melody was followed by a whisper. Mommy missed you. The closet door creaked open, inch by inch. And there, in the faint light, I saw a jar glowing softly. Inside, a face forming in the yellow liquid. Her face. Then the rocking chair in the corner began to move. Back and forth. Back and forth. And through the shadows, a hand pressed against the glass from inside the jar. Don't cry, her voice said softly. Mommy just wants to make you perfect again. The bulb flickered once, then the jar cracked open. When I was 9, I first realized my father wasn't normal. At first, it was little things, always asking where I was, what I was doing, how long I'd been in the bathroom. Then I found it. A tiny black camera hidden in the corner of my bedroom ceiling. It was so small I almost missed it. The blinking red light had stopped, but I knew it was there, watching, recording. Dad, why is there a camera here? I asked one night. He smiled, thin-lipped, and said, just keeping an eye on my little angel. You never know what could happen. I laughed it off at first, but then I noticed other cameras. In the kitchen, the living room, the hallway, even the bathroom. The worst was the night I caught him watching footage on his laptop, hours of recordings of me sleeping, talking to myself, even crying silently. His eyes were wide, glassy. He whispered, "This is real life, not a game." Every moment counts. I didn't tell anyone, because who would believe a father obsessed with cameras? And deep down, I knew that the moment I screamed for help, he'd already see it coming. One night, I woke to a faint clicking sound. I followed it, tiptoeing down the hall. Through the crack in his office door, I saw him, sitting, wide-eyed, staring at multiple monitors. On the screens, every room of the house, every hallway, every angle of my room. He was whispering my name over and over, not softly, not lovingly, like a ritual. Where is my little angel? Come here, come to me. I watched him without making a sound. Then I noticed something horrifying. On one screen, I saw a camera I hadn't noticed before, pointed at my closet. I backed away, my stomach twisting. Something inside me screamed, warning me. The next morning, I found a USB stick on my pillow. It contained footage of me sleeping, my eyes open, staring into the camera. But I knew I hadn't done that. He had somehow forced me awake, forced me to watch myself sleep. And then I noticed the date on the file. It was 2 days in the future. I discovered the door last summer. It was hidden behind the laundry closet. Inside was worse than anything I had imagined. Rows of monitors, hundreds of cameras, recording everything. Microphones hung from the ceiling, picking up every whisper. And in the corner, a chair, strapped with leather, facing a camera. I realized then, he wasn't just watching, he was training us. My brother, my mother, and me. Every movement recorded, every sound logged. I tried to leave, but he caught me in the act. His smile was wide, teeth showing. Curiosity is dangerous, he said. You're learning too fast. He made me sit in the chair, strapped me in, and pointed the camera directly at my face. "Look into the lens. See yourself." I felt exposed in ways I never had. My father clicked record. I realized then my life had already been a performance, and I hadn't even known it. From that day, I understood. The cameras were a weapon. He'd follow us with them silently, lurking in shadows, catching us off guard. One night, I whispered to my brother about escaping. The next morning, he was crying in his bed. On the pillow, a picture of him sleeping, smiling strangely, holding the very knife from the kitchen. I knew he was warning me. I couldn't hide anything. He controlled everything. Even our friends knew we were watched. Every phone call, every conversation, somehow recorded, somehow twisted for his amusement. And the worst part, he didn't need to be in the room. The cameras were his eyes, the microphones his ears. And I was his actor. The next time I heard him whisper, I realized he wasn't just watching. He was guiding us, directing us like a puppet master, controlling our actions without touching us. I wasn't just afraid. I was trapped in his performance. I tried to fight back. One night, I smashed a camera in my room. The next day, he didn't speak. He just watched. Not with eyes, but through my mind. I started noticing the patterns. Every time I moved or spoke, he was already reacting, faster than humanly possible. Then came the message. A single screen in the basement lit up, showing me sleeping again. Only now, the reflection in the screen wasn't mine. It was his eyes, watching me from somewhere I couldn't see. And I understood. I had never really seen him. Not fully. He had always been hiding behind the lenses. The real face of my father had never existed outside the cameras. I planned it carefully, packed a bag, waited for the night. But as I stepped into the hallway, all cameras pivoted at once, like they were alive. A soft, almost mechanical whisper came from each monitor. "Going somewhere?" I ran, heart pounding. The basement door slammed behind me. All cameras zoomed, tracking every step. The house itself seemed to shift, doors closing, windows sealing, walls creaking. I made it to the car. Turned the key. Nothing. A monitor flashed on in the rearview mirror. My father's eyes, wide and calm, staring at me. He wasn't in the house. He didn't need to be. He was already everywhere I was going. As I sat in the car, shaking, my phone vibrated. A message flashed, "Don't try to leave." "I see you." I hung up immediately, but the line rang again. I answered out of a mixture of fear and curiosity. "Hello?" I whispered. A distorted version of my father's voice came through. Calm, slow, deliberate. "You can't hide from me. Every corner you move, every breath you take, I am there. And soon, everyone you care about will be too." My chest tightened. I realized I had been wrong. He wasn't just obsessed with watching. He thrived on control. He knew my routines, my habits, every route I took, every friend I trusted. I couldn't run, couldn't call for help. He had already mapped my life. I threw the phone to the ground, but it kept ringing. The screen flashed video. It was my mother. She was tied to a chair, bruised and bloody, crying silently. Behind her, my father's shadow, stretching across the wall like a living entity. I screamed. He had already trapped the people I loved, using them as bait. It wasn't about cameras anymore. It was about fear. Pure, consuming fear. I knew I had to face him. I returned to the house, every instinct screaming at me not to. Inside, the air was thick, heavy with the smell of old electronics and burnt circuits. Cameras rotated silently, their lenses glinting like cold eyes. I saw him then, sitting in his throne of monitors, cables crawling like snakes around his arms. His smile was calm, controlled. "You came back?" he said softly. "Good. I've been waiting." I lunged, knocking over one of the monitors. It sparked, lighting up the basement in harsh, white flashes. He didn't flinch. He only tapped a button, and suddenly, every camera in the house turned on, tracking my every move. "You see," he whispered, "I don't have to move. You're already mine, and I control the world through my eyes." The shadows in the corners thickened. They weren't just shadows. They were pieces of him, crawling along the walls, ready to strike. I realized then, I wasn't fighting a man. I was fighting the house, and he was the mind behind it. Everything went wrong at once. The monitors began to flash red. The shadows became solid, stretching toward me like black liquid. Cables whipped like snakes, wrapping around my legs. I fell, hitting my head against the floor. When I opened my eyes, the basement had changed. Walls were no longer straight. They twisted. The ceiling seemed to grow taller, then collapse. The cameras hovered around me, spinning, whirring, their lenses glinting in malicious anticipation. He laughed, not a human laugh, but a distorted mechanical sound that pierced my skull. "You can't escape," he said. "I own every moment, every memory, every fear." I tried to scream, but no sound came out. And then, the monitors displayed my worst memories. Moments of weakness, of fear, of shame. Every one of them amplified, distorted, magnified. I could feel the fear, rising inside me like a tide, drowning rational thought. I realized something horrifying. He didn't just watch, he consumed, and I was next. I don't remember exactly how it ended. One moment I was trapped, the next, I was standing outside, bloodied, gasping for air. But the worst part followed me home. I turned on the TV to distract myself. Every channel, the news, shows, even cartoons, flickered. Then, there it was, a live feed. My bedroom. I ran upstairs. The monitors were in my room, and through them, I saw him. Not in the house, not in my mind, but everywhere. A distorted version of his face smiled through the cameras, whispering, "You belong to me." And now, everyone who watches you belongs to me too. From that night on, I can't sleep. I can't trust any screen, any camera, any reflection. He's out there, watching, waiting. And I know, the moment I close my eyes, he'll be inside my dreams. I live my life like a performance, because the audience is him, and he's always watching. I was 9 when I first arrived at my new home. The house was beautiful, big windows, a garden full of flowers, and a mother who smiled constantly. She was kind, almost too kind, like someone playing a role she had practiced 1,000 times. "You're finally home, sweetheart," she said, her voice soft, almost hypnotic. At first, everything seemed perfect. She bought me clothes I loved, read me bedtime stories, tucked me in every night. But I quickly noticed the rules, small, subtle rules that she reminded me of constantly. No running in the hall, no touching the knickknacks, never open the doors upstairs. I obeyed. It wasn't that I feared punishment. It was her eyes. They followed me everywhere, scanning, judging, silently punishing. The first strange thing happened at night. I woke to find her sitting in the hallway, rocking back and forth. She whispered my name, soft, melodic, almost a lullaby. I froze. She smiled at me, patting her lap. "Come here, darling." "It's safer with Mommy." I ran to my room, locking the door. But the next morning, I found a doll on my bed. A doll that looked exactly like me. Its eyes seemed alive, and etched into its back were the words, "Mommy's perfect child." It started with small punishments. If I touched something forbidden, she'd make me kneel for hours. Sometimes, she'd whisper into my ear, recounting all the ways I had failed her. Other times, she'd send me to my room with a single phrase, "Think about how to be better." The dolls multiplied. Each one was slightly different, but all had my face. I started seeing them in corners, on shelves, even in the garden. I tried hiding them, throwing them away, but every morning they returned. One evening, I found a tiny notebook hidden under the bed. Inside were pages filled with drawings of me. Every movement I made that day recorded in perfect detail. And at the bottom of each page, a note. "Tomorrow we improve." It was then I realized this wasn't just obsession. It was control. She wanted to mold me, shape me, erase the parts of me she didn't like. And the dolls, they were warnings. A glimpse of what would happen if I failed. She never let me upstairs. "Too many dangerous things up there," she said, smiling. But I knew better. Every day, I'd hear strange sounds. Whispers, scratching, muffled sobs. One night, curiosity won. I picked the lock of the small door at the top of the stairs. Inside was a room I'll never forget. Walls lined with shelves, each holding glass jars filled with strange liquid and something inside. Some were small, some larger, but all human-shaped. In the corner, a chair swayed on its own. I saw dolls that looked like me, but older, decayed, and hollow-eyed. And at the top shelf, a small box with my name written neatly in black ink. I realized then, the dolls, the jars, the obsession. It was all me. She wasn't shaping children. She was trapping them. And somehow, I was next. I ran down the stairs, heart pounding. But she was waiting. Her smile was wide, calm, terrifying. "I see you found my little project," she said softly. "Curiosity is dangerous, darling." "Don't make me angry," I tried to explain, but she didn't listen. Instead, she hugged me tightly. Her grip was cold, unyielding. Then, she whispered something in my ear. "You belong to me now. And someday, you'll understand why." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing the dolls, the jars, the little eyes staring from the shelves. Her whisper followed me everywhere. And then I heard the creaking. The chair swaying upstairs. She had left it moving for me to see. A warning. A promise. I realized then, no matter what I did, I couldn't escape. I found her diary hidden under the kitchen floorboard. It was filled with entries detailing every child she had adopted before me. She wrote about shaping them, controlling them, trapping their essence inside dolls and jars. One entry chilled me to the bone. "They think they are alive. But they are mine now. And when the new one comes, she will complete my collection." I realized the dolls weren't just warnings. They were prisons. And if I failed, I'd be next. Her obsession wasn't love. It was possession. I tried burning the diary, but the pages reappeared the next morning on my pillow. With a note in her handwriting, always watching, I started planning my escape. Every day I memorized her routines, every camera location, every hidden trap. I even tested doors and windows, quietly, slowly. But she always knew. Every attempt, every pause, she was there, watching, smiling, whispering, "You can't leave me, darling. You belong here." One night, I found a secret exit in the basement. It was small, barely big enough for a child. But as I approached, I felt a hand on my shoulder. It wasn't her. It was one of the dolls. Cold, lifeless, but holding me in place. I realized then, the dolls weren't just dolls. They were extensions of her control, her eyes everywhere and escaping. Wasn't going to be easy. I tried one last time. I screamed, charged for the exit, and tore at the doll holding me. She appeared instantly like a shadow in the corner. Her eyes glowed faintly, her smile calm but terrifying. "Trying to leave already?" she whispered. "You'll only return. You always return." The dolls around me moved, slowly, silently, blocking my path. It was like a swarm, their eyes glowing faintly red. She reached out. Her hand passed through the air, brushing my face. I felt a coldness deeper than ice. It seeped into my bones, freezing me in place. "You can run," she said, "but you'll always be mine." I realized then, I wasn't facing a woman. I was facing her obsession made flesh. And she had been feeding on fear for years. I thought I had a chance to escape, but the house itself seemed alive now. Every door I tried to open slammed shut. Every window locked itself. The dolls moved constantly, their red eyes following me, whispering my name in soft, broken voices. She appeared again, hovering at the top of the stairs, her smile wider than ever. "You thought you could leave?" she said, her voice echoing unnaturally. "Everything here belongs to me. Every corner, every shadow, every part of you." I realized I couldn't run through the house. It had become a maze of her obsession. The furniture shifted when I wasn't looking. The walls stretched and twisted. The stairs led to nowhere, looping back to the same basement over and over. Then I saw it. A wall of mirrors. Reflections of me, but twisted, hollow-eyed, pale. Each reflection whispered secrets, fears, mistakes I hadn't even told her yet. And at the center of the mirrors, her reflection appeared, smiling, calm, omnipresent. It wasn't just her face. It was her essence, infecting every reflection, every shadow, every inch of the house. I screamed, pounding my fists, trying to break the glass. But it didn't shatter. Her laugh filled the room, a sound that pierced through bone, echoing through every hallway. And I knew then, truly, that the trap wasn't physical. It was mental, emotional, spiritual. She had me, body and soul. As I sank to the floor, I noticed one doll that hadn't moved. It was in the corner, slightly tilted, its face calm. I stared at it. And then I realized it wasn't a doll at all. It was a child, a previous victim. Her eyes were dull, hollowed, and lifeless. I understood then the truth. She didn't just make dolls. She trapped souls inside them. Every toy in the house had a child inside, frozen, broken, watching helplessly. The doll raised a tiny hand toward me, trembling. It whispered softly, almost like a warning. "Don't fight her, or you'll be next." Panic clawed at me. I wanted to scream, to run, to fight. But the doll's warning sank into my mind. She was smarter than me, faster than me, and her control was total. The house vibrated. The walls hummed, alive with her obsession. I could feel her watching me from every angle, every shadow. I realized then that survival wasn't about escape. It wasn't about running. It was about pretending. Pretending I was part of her collection. Until an opportunity presented itself. I spent months pretending. Smiling when she smiled. Playing the games she set, obeying every rule. The dolls stopped moving, watching silently. Her satisfaction filled the air like smoke. But deep inside, I was planning, observing her, learning every habit, every weakness. One night, she fell asleep in the living room. I carefully moved through the house, avoiding the shadows, the cameras, the traps. Reaching the front door, I noticed something horrifying. The dolls were all staring at me, their eyes glowing red. But they didn't move. I ran, out into the night, into the cold, dark streets. I didn't look back. Even now, I know she watches. Every doll in her house contains a piece of someone she's taken, and she knows I survived. So somewhere, somehow, she's waiting. Every time I hear a soft whisper, see a reflection in a window or a doll on a store shelf, I know. She hasn't forgotten me. She never will. The adoptive mother's trap isn't just her house. It's her mind, her obsession, and she will always find a way to reach you. I survived. For now. I was 10 when I was assigned a new guardian. My parents had died in a car accident, and I was placed with someone I didn't know, a distant relative who insisted on taking me in. From the first day, something felt off. He was polite, almost charming, but there was a coldness in his eyes, a precision that unsettled me. He welcomed me into a massive house at the edge of the forest. The walls were lined with books, strange symbols, and photographs of children I didn't recognize. "Welcome home, little one," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I'll take care of you." Don't worry, I tried to like him. I tried to trust him. But then the rules started. No going outside after dusk, no speaking to neighbors, no touching certain doors. I didn't understand why at first, until the whispers began. Soft, distorted voices that seemed to follow me through the halls. At night, I'd hear footsteps in the rooms I wasn't in. And always, the sensation of being watched. Then came the first punishment. I accidentally opened a locked door in the library. He didn't yell, he didn't hit me, he simply stared, and I felt my soul shrink under his gaze. "You must learn," he said softly. "Obedience is safety. Safety is life from that moment." I knew this guardian wasn't ordinary. He was something else. Something dangerous. The first night in his house was unbearable. Every creak, every gust of wind felt amplified. I woke to find my bedroom door open. In the corner, he stood silently, watching. "You must sleep, little one," he whispered. His voice was soft, almost comforting, but it carried a weight I couldn't escape. I tried to close my eyes, but shadows seemed to stretch across the room. Every corner held his gaze, even when I couldn't see him. Then I noticed the mirrors, all of them, reflecting my image. And something else, something behind me. I turned quickly, nothing. But the feeling remained, that presence, cold and unyielding, watching, calculating. By morning I felt exhausted, broken. He smiled at breakfast. "You slept well," he said. And I realized then, sleep wasn't safe. Nothing in this house was. He didn't punish me physically, at least not in the way I expected. Instead, he manipulated fear. He would lock me in rooms for hours, leaving only a single candle. He whispered my failures into my ears, recounting every lie, every secret, every moment he could twist against me. I started seeing things, shadows moving independently, whispers forming words, toys shifting on their own. Every time I thought I was safe, he appeared, calm, smiling, observing. One day, I accidentally dropped a cup. He didn't scold me. He didn't raise his hand. He smiled, but it was a smile that froze me to my core. "Perfection," he said softly. "You will learn, or you will break. And that's okay." It's part of growing up I began to understand. This was no ordinary guardian. He fed on control, on fear, on obedience. And I was his project. Curiosity got the better of me one day. I found a hidden door in the library leading to a basement. Inside, horror. Rows of shelves lined with photographs of children. Each one had the same cold, distant look in their eyes. In the corner, a large cage held dolls, but they were lifelike. Some had scratches, bruises, signs of previous punishment. I realized then he wasn't just a guardian. He was collecting children, not physically, necessarily, but mentally, controlling them, shaping them, leaving traces of them in these objects. I tried to leave quietly, but I heard him behind me. "You found my little collection?" he said softly. "Curiosity is dangerous. You must learn your place." I ran upstairs, heart racing. But the image of those dolls stayed with me. They weren't just toys, they were warnings. From that day, isolation became his tool. He restricted my movements, forbade any contact with the outside world. Phone calls, letters, even glances out the window were monitored. Every attempt at independence was met with silent observation. At night, I could hear whispers, faint footsteps, and the sound of the dolls moving. Each night, the whispers got louder, forming words. "You belong here. You will obey." I tried telling myself it was imagination, but the fear was too real. Every shadow, every reflection seemed to mimic him, reminding me of his constant presence. Sleep became torture. Dreams of dolls, cages, and his calm smile haunted me. And when I woke, I realized that fear had already become part of my waking life. The rules became unbearable. No movement without permission. No speaking unless spoken to. Every glance I gave him had to be measured, calculated. One evening, I accidentally dropped a book. He didn't yell. He didn't hit me. He simply looked at me, his eyes cold, calculating, as if seeing through every thought in my mind. "You are learning," he whispered softly. "But remember, disobedience has consequences." From that day on, I began to notice the hidden cameras and mirrors. Every corner of the house seemed alive, watching, listening. The dolls weren't just dolls anymore. They moved subtly when I wasn't looking. I realized his control wasn't physical alone. It was psychological, mental, spiritual. He had built a house that was a trap, a prison, and I was the only inmate. Every day, the whispers in the shadows grew louder. They weren't just warnings anymore. They were instructions, telling me what to do, how to move, how to behave. I knew I had to escape, but I also knew that a single misstep would cost me everything. Not just my freedom, my sanity. One night, I tried to run. I packed a small bag and crept toward the door, heart pounding in my chest. But the house had other plans. Doors slammed shut. Shadows stretched, twisting along the walls. The dolls moved, blocking my path, their red eyes glowing like warning lights. He appeared suddenly, silent, calm, terrifying. "You really thought you could leave?" he said softly. His smile was warm, almost comforting, but there was nothing human in it. I froze. I tried to push past, but his hand touched my shoulder and the world seemed to distort. The whispers grew into screams, the walls bending inward. I realized then that the house and he were one. Escape wasn't just difficult, it was impossible. I returned to my room, trembling. The dolls surrounded me, silent now, their red eyes blinking in unison. He stood at the door, smiling. "You belong here," he said. "And one day, you'll understand why." Curiosity overcame fear once more. I ventured into the basement, determined to understand the full extent of his obsession. Shelves lined with photographs of children, dolls in cages, and jars filled with strange fluids filled the space. Each doll bore the likeness of a child, some pale, some bruised, some missing eyes. I realized then the horrifying truth. He didn't just control children psychologically. He trapped them somehow in these objects. I heard footsteps behind me. He was there, silent, calm, watching. "You shouldn't have come here," he whispered. "You've seen too much. But don't worry, you will become part of the collection soon enough." I ran, narrowly avoiding the moving dolls that seemed to block every exit. The basement seemed alive, twisting, bending to trap me. I escaped, barely, but the image of the lifeless dolls haunted me. Every shadow in the house became a potential threat. Every reflection, a warning. I realized I couldn't outsmart him head on. I had to pretend, blend in, observe, until the perfect moment. Every day, I followed his rules meticulously, masking my fear. I memorized every camera, every hidden device, every motion he expected. One night, he fell asleep in the living room. The dolls were still, the house silent. I crept toward the front door, heart hammering. I could feel his presence, even in sleep. Whispers filled the air, low, distant like a warning. I reached the door. My hands shook. I turned the knob. The house groaned. Shadows twisted in unnatural ways. And I knew, if he woke, if he noticed, the consequences would be unbearable. But I had no choice. I had to leave, or be trapped forever. I ran into the night, leaving the house behind. The cold air hit my face. For a moment, freedom. But the nightmare wasn't over. Every time I looked back, I saw the windows glowing red. The doll's eyes blinked in the dark, and I felt it. His presence, reaching out, whispering. I survived for now. But he watches still. Every shadow, every mirror, every reflection. I know he is there. The twisted guardian wasn't just a man. He was obsession, control, fear, an entity that feeds on children. And I know he hasn't forgotten me. Every time I close my eyes, I hear him. "You belong to me. Forever." The stories you just heard aren't just tales. They are warnings. 7 twisted worlds where parents, guardians, and caretakers hide obsession, cruelty, and control behind smiles, lullabies, and love. From the father who watched through cameras, to the adoptive mother's horrifying collection, to the guardian whose obsession trapped children in shadows. Each story reminds us that evil can wear the mask of care. It's a chilling truth. Sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you can become your worst nightmare. And the most terrifying part? These stories feel real. They linger in your mind long after the lights go out, in every reflection, every shadow, every whisper in the dark. Remember, fear doesn't always roar. Sometimes it watches, waits, and manipulates quietly. It hides behind smiles, waits in corners, and breathes through obsession. If tonight's stories have unsettled you, remember, that's exactly the point. The world is full of shadows that you can't see, and people who are not always what they seem. Thank you for watching. Stay aware, stay cautious, and never forget, even the safest home can hide the darkest secrets. Thanks for watching. This was Mr. Dark Knight, Mr. Warrior.